Starting lineup: Jax, Vi, Echo, Caitlyn, Yumi, up against Nasus, Trundle, Mel, Jhin, Rel. Rating of the picks for a lower ranked game: Jax as a top, 9. Vi in the jungle, 9. Echo in the mid, 6. Caitlyn as a shooter, 10. Yumi in support, 0. Nasus as a top, 7. Mel as a mid, unknown. Jhin as a shooter, 9. Rel in support, 10. Observe now this 4-on-5 game. For what entertainment value that it may offer, it's going to include this brand new character Mel. Very interested to see how that is going to materialize. There are times when situations get very one-sided, but even then we can still learn something. And we come to find that on the lowest level, a lot of these victories revolve around avoiding self-sabotage more than anything else. Moving on. What is going on here? This is a mage or a sharpshooter player. In this set, Hawk playing Rel, who lost a couple of games. In ranked, got upset, and determined as a bitter resolve to go and play support. How do you know that? Well, because this is the type of person who has no business in support whatsoever, with a bitter and vindictive personality. The idea is here to deliberately stand in the bushes in the beginning of the play and to wait until Jhin gets killed so that they can go ahead and feel superior to them. Now, if you look at me and my games, you will probably notice that I'm either hanging around the starter spot for junglers at my end in the beginning of the game, very close to my base, or I'm sitting in the bushes that are adjacent to the turret if I'm playing in a lane. You will find that I have never gone out to the enemy jungle, that I have never ventured out and tried to claim first blood for myself. This is because this works on the predictable AI machine that you learn to play against in the tutorial of League of Legends, but it is something that is not at all successful against human players. And it is all part of a very African element of social approval, just like the Teemo in the top lane, just like the famous legendary Warwick build. It's more than anything about following other people rather than actually thinking for yourself. And this going out to the enemy jungle, more than anything, we refer to as the 5-finger fillet or knife game. In this game, a knife or a sharp object is rapidly stabbed between the outstretched fingers of a hand, typically in a pattern, while avoiding injury to the fingers. It's a classic dare game often associated with pirates, because much like a Vegas casino, in the long run, the house always wins. And the reason behind that is it is infinitely more safe and easy for the red mid to come and help out in the red jungle. It is infinitely more easy and simple for the red shooter and for the red support to help out in the red part of the jungle. When there is any maneuvering, everywhere that the red team can run, they will have an advantage because there will be a turret. Whereas everywhere the blue team can possibly run, they will exclusively have a disadvantage. And what is behind all this? Imagine that we would play a game of football or basketball, and every time that you would step out of bounds, you would automatically win, and the other team would automatically lose. That is very much what we have in the beginning of League games, with this jungle chase down mania. Which is to say, the moment that I go to one of the red turrets on my side, you are completely effed. But if you go there, you will instantly die. All I have to do is step out of bounds and I'm good. That's why this doesn't work. It also much resembles the squishy Nasus building and the building Nasus into an assassin we already have very few heavy tanks. If we then have to turn Nasus into a lightweight assassin, how sad is that? We'll have no tanks left at all. And this is very much depleting an endangered species and the only ones we have left. Converting that one tank into one of the myriad, into one of the many damage dealers. And this is very much what is going on a social level with these little jungle escapades 1 minute in. Which is to say, they require tremendous social sacrifice and social coordination. There is already no social cohesion or teamwork of any kind to speak of. If you then have to start off at the beginning of the game, giving away what little cohesion you have for this kind of nonsense, what happens here at 1 minute in? You're giving away the entire social foundation for the rest of the game. And then on a more humane level and individual level, this entire initiation revolves around this young Italian boy who's staying up too late for his own good. Who, if we have ever learned anything about people and human behavior, is chasing down this Jin player individually and trying to get up his rear end because of the fact that he cannot stand that this Jin player has on a really cool skin and a really cool uniform. And in all likelihood, it pisses him off, and he wants to prove that with his ordinary free-to-play Caitlyn, that he can shine just as bright as this super fancy Jin player with the 15 euros worth of cosmetics. This is what happens from jealousy, if experience is to teach us anything. We open the play with this cat, sinking to a new level and somehow accomplishing not even being able to hide in the shooter person, which all it takes is a tap of a button and you're inside of them, so I have no idea what you're doing outside of them. There is an aging French name, Claudeline, that is in actuality being phased out of the mainstream culture. The name Claudeline somewhat on borrowed time in modern day society. And apparently Yumi the cat here is either a woman or a person trying to pretend to be a woman called Claudeline, and she made a kind of pun on the name, introducing herself to the world as Claudeline, as in scratching the cat with claws, so claw instead of claw, and is now subsequently going around in ranked games, terrorizing people with this cat, for whom she bought a bunch of cosmetics, and so here we are. And if you're wondering what I mean when I say bottom of the barrel, this is what I mean when I say bottom of the barrel. And this is what I mean when I say that it's going to be very difficult for me to ever escape this environment with this kind of stuff going on. Because go ahead and try to rank up with something like that going on your team. This also tends to explain why we see so few female comedians. The best part is that the Caitlyn player would have lived, because that's how forgiving her health pool is despite everything. But she somehow managed to start shooting back. I have no idea why, because she's not Jinx and she's not Ashe. She doesn't really have a kind of slow shot or stun shot, so it doesn't even do anything movement-wise, but apparently decided that 10% life left and she's going to start attacking back, which is what ended up getting her killed. In the killing of Echo here, you can appreciate that the scoring system credits me for supplying the area slow with my pillar, which I must say, if that is going to be consistently scored that way, then it's going to be very easy for anyone to rack up a bunch of assists on Trundle, which is good news for me. The incredible Jax being the first one so far in about 4 days, messing around on Trundle to actually escape the pillar. Look at that, Jax did it again. It's always the same ones. Can actually just hop over it. Meanwhile, when we look on the minimap, after the Jax skill, we see yet another truly beautiful expression of the luxury and the comfort that the cat brings a team, as naturally the support player in Yumi drifts up to me as I'm about to finish off the Drake and just leaves me be. Because of course she is the cat, and the cat is helpless, and it's effectively a 4-man team, so I'm just going to finish off the Drake entirely undisturbed. Now imagine that that was Pike or that was Kled. Do you think I would have been able to finish off the dragon? It is kind of a horror show every day. And I am aware that even for me, this is a very unpopular thing to bring up, but a bit of a horror show every day. To go play by play and observe these funsies women sticking around, playing with the cat, inserting the cat into the game, and just entirely screwing up a competitive game between mostly young men. A frightening spectacle in its own way, and it's always the same group of people that get a free pass for everything. Have this beautiful bit of CC here later down the line. Isn't this just visually beautiful of putting that ice pillar right in front of the exit? Turning the whole thing into a little rat cage. Now what this individual of course doesn't know, which is what only Vi fanatics like myself would know because I have more hours on Vi than on anybody, is you can simply punch the wall and you will go through and then end up on the other side. And so you're not at all trapped, but of course this person doesn't know that. So they end up dying. We're gonna have some teamfight drama here, as this Rel has finally been able to scratch her emotional itch by leaving the bottom lane, and in the most literal sense of the word, telling this Jhin player to stay in his place. Gonna have this little chase down scene here, starring Vi. Vi behind Sechuani, probably the #1 most mobile jungle champion in the game. The AIs will tell you that it is Kayn, but that is hogwash, since Kayn has a 20-second cooldown on his jungle mobility. It is very limited. If you end up getting Vi, just Dead's Dance or Black Cleaver, she will already be able to punch through a wall every 3 seconds or so. That means that every 3 seconds you can escape adjacent any jungle structure. You could have very easily punched that wall there and you would have gotten away. I've done it hundreds of times. We have this interaction between Jax and Nasus, which is an ego game and completely ridiculous. You guys have faced off like 8 times and this Jax player still thinks that he's ahead of this Nasus player after losing to him 8 times straight. That's an ego problem. You have to be more cautious when a matchup has already clearly proven themselves to be superior. Because at some point the fighting is going to turn into farming, and you're going to get farmed. And I myself am surprised at how long this team fight interaction was going for, so I end up arriving more as a kind of social excuse than to actually contribute anything. Because that is the way that these things go usually. If you're not in place immediately, it's usually pointless to come over. The distances are too significant. Yeah, the right way to play this is to freeze Nasus up at the turret, because Jax cannot possibly beat Nasus in this state, but Jax plus the turret can very easily beat Nasus. And so that's how you play it. You hold him off, you bore him to death, and you just play the game defensively. And then what should happen if you have a decent team and you didn't waste all your social cohesion on getting together at the 1 minute mark all the way in the beginning beginning to chase jungle targets around, then you should be able to ask your teammates for some kind of assistance and then simply go 3-on-1 on Nasus, and that's how you beat him here. What you don't do is you don't start running into the jungle, then wait for him to pop his ult and then get eaten alive. The more heavy a tank is, the more one-sided the evolution is going to be when it comes to snowballing. Which is to say, there's going to be a point with Nasus where he reaches such an item advantage and such a life and armor advantage that fighting him will be much like a hamster in a wheel. Yeah, you have this Echo whose playstyle just always demands that he's fit and in good condition. Echo, a symbol of modern-day Germany and the living embodiment of modern-day Germany. Yet another German player going to work on him. If in this case you had picked Lux, or you would have picked Vel'Koz, you would still be able to contribute from afar. Have picked Swain, you would have been able to regenerate health all the while. But of course, as Echo, either you have everything up or you don't. And when you don't have everything up, then you're instantly useless because his playstyle is so action heavy that he's constantly going to take punishment no matter what he does. He's always in the thick of things. It's like a very uncool version of Zed. Dragging my hairy troll bass here over to the Rift Herald and going to work. Yeah, we're not dumb, we're just stupid. And so we don't learn, and so we're going to do the same thing over and over and over again. These wild scores you see from time to time are just a product of an enemy team continuously getting gobbled up, almost on purpose, and that is what is going on with this Jax here. And this Nasus player has come very close to being part of perfect victory, and so the first thing that he's going to do when he gets somewhere near that level is trying to F it all up. You're going to see this Nasus player throughout this game trying to snipe every single individual turret, afterwards trying to grab the Rift Herald and take credit for the Rift Herald, and then in the middle of the game, stopping his lane activity, stopping his territorial activity to go after my jungle monsters while I'm already 4 or 5 levels behind. I'm gonna have to do with these little small tidbits and these small jungle monsters because he picked all the big ones off, which this guy, much like male body parts and female body parts, there's a gap you can never bridge. And in the same way, if I wanted to be like this Rampage P, maybe the P stands for cat, I don't know, but if I really wanted to be like him, I never could be. And simultaneously, it would be impossible in any way to ever fall to these mistakes if I tried. Because you're going to see this guy at the final phases of this game bickering and competing and sniping literally everything to add it to his own record, which is just unspeakable to me that you would score a perfect victory and then risk throwing it all away by completely falling apart as a team. You would think that really, when it's clear that you're going to win the game and you're way ahead, that you probably don't want to give it away at this point. Not with that guy. And if it had advantages to be like that, it would always be impossible for me to take those advantages. And similarly, any traps that this person would ever fall to, I could personally never fall to. It's kind of laughable and helpless. You see this personality sometimes when people stream offline games and they're like beating themselves up in an offline game to milk the map or the level for every last little penny, even though it's virtual offline money and they don't need it at all for anything. And it wouldn't buy them any kind of weapons or anything, but they just insist on having it. It's a kind of obsessive personality. And like, do you think, so you're hyper competitive, right, Rampage P? You're hyper competitive. You're most likely the type of guy who sees themselves as somebody who could advance to semi-professional play or much higher level of play at the very least. Okay, now do you think that a pro team would be more likely to select you because you were capable of this kind of behavior? Do you think this is attractive to a pro team? That you're artificially going to snipe everything and that you would risk the game over that? Do you think this is appealing on the highest levels? But no matter what you do to him and no matter how many mistakes you make as far as formation or shopping goes, it's going to be hard in these kinds of loser environments to screw up a lineup of Nasus, Trundle, and Rel. This is really kind of the embodiment of everything that I've talked about, right? 3 heavies and 2 outlets, and perhaps even preferable 4 heavies and 1 outlet. And in that case, your shooter could really be fed and could really shine. And you just see that in everything. It's just because there's so many positions where the mid here could put themselves in that they're safe because they're surrounded by all those heavies. And sometimes what it takes also is just being strong enough on a social level and a moral level not to go and throw your life away at the jungle objective when you clearly know that the enemy team has the upper hand. Suicide is never going to get you anywhere, no matter what. We get to enjoy a true moment of beauty here, as this Jhin player is going to discover why it is that I always leave the Rift Herald in place, and subsequently leave myself, causing him to use this automatic ram ability. There's only 2 circumstances under which you should get into the Rift Herald. Circumstance number 1, the Rift Herald has already used this ram ability, and you want to force him to use it a second time after a cooldown. It is impossible to do that without getting yourself into the device. Second situation and second possibility, the Rift Herald has been let loose in an environment where he cannot possibly succeed, such as the team base or near the fountain, and you have to forcefully drive him into the objective. In that case, you should take manual control of him. Other than that, you should stay away from it and never click on it. Breaking the game up into small pieces, let's look at the individuals who took part in this game. We have Nasus, one of the few top laners with limitations. Generally speaking, all the top laners are pure gold for the casual and lower tier setting. Nasus is really simplistic, which puts him in the category of Garen and Darius as a champ who still brings good armor and in Nasus's case could whittle down enemies very well, but you're never going to get much farther on there. We see that you are building him with assassination items, and this time you got the absolute perfect score doing so. I wish you the best. Good luck, man. I don't see this happening, but who knows. We have myself, who is continuously astonished by how bizarrely Trundle so surprisingly resourceful. Really not where I expected this level of practical ease and tools. Many of those things that he does, like the pillar, they just prove to be useful almost anywhere. I was very much awake in this game. One thing I could have done is probably visited some of the lanes for a little bit longer, because these teams are clearly playing in such a way that they expect me to take advantage of the lanes anyway, and do not respect any kind of code or any kind of morality. We have this Mel player who helped out more than the average mid, turned out to have a mature personality, very good job defending the objectives. It's just a perfect cocktail of you're willing to help people out, but simultaneously you're also making sure that the stuff you signed up for in the mid lane is being tended to. We have this Jhin player who ended up missing every skill shot and drove the Rift Herald directly into the wall for no reason whatsoever. It just goes to show you that Jhin has a magnificent auto attack. This player had pretty damn good values, this Jhin player, but very nervous with the controls. I suspect that it takes a kind of specific personality. I would say especially shooter, so 4 position and 5 position support. They take a specific personality. And I would say that this Jhin player makes a poor shooter personality-wise. And then for this Rel player, very similarly, to stay on the same topic, makes a very poor support player, and this was probably a one-off or something close to it. Being a shooter kind of takes being robotic, very exact, and willing to follow the unwritten rule down to the last. If you're going to behave utterly chaotically on a shooter, then the system is going to make you pay very quickly. For Rel, a support player, it really takes wanting to be helpful and taking pride in helping people rather than shining as a star. Since from the first moment you are trying to get Jhin killed to make a point about your own superiority, and how much we all needed you and that we better not forget that we need you, I would argue that this is a completely wrong personality type to play support. And I do believe that it's something that gets under your skin if you have to do this day after day, game after game after game. And you continuously have to help people and be very submissive and supportive when that's not your personality at all. Even though you're trying to do that to either get faster Q or because that dramatically increases the chances that you're going to get picked up by some kind of more serious team. You're never going to keep that up if you're in no way resonating with that. We have this Jax player, which, as far as mistakes goes, this is the most understandable one of all. You had a great build for him, actually a better build than the Nasus player who ended up completely destroying you. And you kept fighting to a fault, which at some point 5 or 6 deaths in, you shouldn't, but you were probably too young to understand that at some point, fighting back becomes a negative, but I would argue very good personality on this Jax, very intelligent build on this Jax, and this is the most forgivable kind of mistake, to hand the enemy kills because you're just, in a serious manner, trying too hard to contribute. We have this Vi player whom I intentionally try to break in spirit and mind because that is my job as a jungler, to make you give up. That is the harsh reality of the game. And who broke about 14 minutes in, after just getting bullied on every single jungle objective, and at that point, did a very mature and smart thing which I always would do when faced with an impossible situation. Is I just run to the first jungle camp and then I go back to the base, and then I run to the first jungle camp and I go back to the base. And this player checked themselves out of the game, which is smart. It's smarter to do than to rage when you realize that the situation is beyond saving. Then we have Echo here, by far the best player on Team Blue, who would succeed on almost any other team, but who was just a victim of the situation. And if not for the cats pressuring him to do things, he could have probably avoided a couple of deaths. You have to imagine, like, it's 11 p.m. on a Friday night, and you're a young German boy, and this woman is a cat, and she enters you and tells you to please go there and please go there, and so you end up going there even though you would never do that by yourself, because it is a difficult spot to be put in on a social level, which is yet another millionth reason to hate and ban the cat. Then we have Italian boy Caitlyn, decent player. No wild mistakes. A bit poor mechanically, perhaps, and you should certainly be way more careful in the jungle on Caitlyn. This Italian person had nearly no experience with the game whatsoever, having put in maybe 15 or 20 hours in total, very low bronze rank. It makes me wonder to what depths I've fallen myself, that this kind of player is somehow playing in my group and in my games. Then we have this very funny female comedian, Yumi the cat, Claudeline. The only thing I want to know is what your record is. What is your record doing this? Because whatever game you ever won, one thing we do know for a fact. Whatever game you ever won, since you have put all your mastery into the cat, and that is clearly your main, and we see the way that you behave and the way that you quote-unquote contribute on the cat, we know that whatever number it is of games that you've ever won, that your team was four-manning it. If you have ever won a game, that means that your team won with 4 people against 5 people. And because of inclusivity, etc., we get this kind of thing and just get put into groups with literally anyone as long as we're not past iron. And I mean literally anyone. This is almost like a lottery, because with players like this Yumi player on your team, you could be an amazing player and you would still struggle to win games. This is an active handicap. Having this cat around is an active handicap. Without any exaggeration or any comedy. Taking a look at the scoreboard here, you're trying to mastermind it here, picking up all these little items, you're trying to outsmart the shop, just go with something. You're not going to be the first one who beats the shop legendary system. And all these little tidbits, they end up keeping you from actually putting together something real. Because when it's all said and done, this 25 movement speed is not going to help you survive anything or escape from anyone. So you're just cheating yourself. Get over yourself and use plain items. The little buckler here is really not so much a Jax item. Let's be fair here and admit it, like this is far from terrible. You're Jax, and Jax is just incredibly skill reliant like Akali. You put yourself in this situation. Jax is a champion with a completely limitless ceiling. You could go all the way from trying to put together the tutorial mode to playing professionally with Jax. Jax resembles Yone and Yasuo a lot, which is why I frequently say that he would be an even better mid laner, despite the fact that he cannot bring magic damage. There's only one way to put Jax together, and you got it, and you're doing it the right way. And you didn't fall into what is, in my opinion, a trap in getting Trinity, because Trinity was nerfed quite some time ago, making it a relatively poor option when your entire point is attack speed. In these very rare exceptions, this is completely correct. Like, I know everybody does this. You'll see this on Darius, you'll see this on Garen, you'll see this on everybody, and it's almost always wrong. But on Jax, this is actually correct, and not only correct, it's actually quite smart, because you evaded the trap of going with Trinity, plus you evaded the trap of wasting money on boots early, which is unforgivable for a laner, because it will take away your survivability in fights drastically, because those boots are not going to keep you alive in a lane. They only serve if you would have to travel the whole distance of the map. So this comes down to pure, unadulterated skill. And apparently you do not have the mechanical skill to take down this Nasus player. And then with a bit of the naivete of a very young man and a hopeful man with an optimistic worldview, you just kept going in over and over and over again. Once your 3 deaths in, your matchup is played. That's kind of what we see here everywhere. This is quite a brilliant way to put together Caitlyn. Especially, you can always tell when no money is being wasted. You're using every penny here very efficiently, not buying stupid stuff. And so you all did horrible, and this is pushing out the wrong message. In fact, this entire game is upside down. Spirit Visage is not really a good item in this situation, but it is a Nasus item. Trinity Force is used on Nasus to enhance usage of his first spell. However, I wildly disagree with it because it is like milking almonds for milk. Getting milk out of almonds. Which is to say, this is a manner to turn Nasus with the limitless flexibility of the League of Legends build mechanism into Jinx and into a damage dealer, which would work to some degree because it capitalizes on his first spell, which is his main source of damage. Nasus focusing in on combo power and pure damage, then why on earth are you playing Nasus? If even the heavy utility tanks have to be Jax-like, then why on earth aren't you simply playing Jax? You're trying to teach hamsters to tap dance here. And I guarantee you that this recipe has already caused this person many, many tearsy weirsies because hamsters are not fit to tap dance.
I like my human with fierce fight.
Minions have spawned. You watch my back? Just like that?
Fjord is mine. They're ruining my good mood. Roll with the plan. I'm Troll Judge, Troll Jury, and Execute Troll. This is Troll Town. Oh, they look angry.
An enemy has been slain.
Smashing.
Enemy has been slain.
Not Troll Thief, Troll King. King! The trolls are going to war! Time to start an ice age. I'm not ugly, but they're about to be. You're in my kingdom now. Tonight, I'm greedy. King of Trolls coming through. My bit of spice. I'll show them crossbow.
An enemy has been slain.
The Freljord is mine! I'm the soul with the flame.
Killing spree.
This will only
Rampage.
judge
Well, it's a good thing that
and execute.
Vi stole my first jungle monsters, right? It's a good thing that Vi got her hands on my first jungle monsters. That was definitely a clever move. That helps you so much, you know. You end up losing the Drake, you end up losing the Void Grubs, but yeah. Who cares? As long as you can just F with my monsters. And with my part of the jungle. That's what really matters, right, children? Right, children?
Oh, they look angry. You're in my kingdom now. I'm gonna die. Hot Troll Chief, Troll King, King! The I'm not ugly, but they're about King of Trolls coming through. I like my human with a bit of spice.
Absolutely vile behavior. Vile fucking behavior. Leaving me alone to go back to the base at a time like that, I nearly got effed up. It's so foul.
I'm the troll.
Unstoppable.
Absolutely wildly irresponsible behavior on the part of Rel here. Completely unacceptable.
An enemy has been slain.
Troll judge, troll jury, and execute. Troll.
Slain an enemy.
Did I break something?
An ally has been slain.
Oh, they look angry. I troll peace, troll king.
Killing spree.
Trolls are going to war.
Turret plating will soon fall.
Troll with the plan. I'm Troll Judge, Troll Jury, and Execute Troll. Oh, they look angry.
Godlike. An enemy has been slain.
The trolls are going to war! Ruining my good mood! Time to start an ice age.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Spice.
Your team has destroyed an inhibitor.
Freljord is mine! I'm Troll with the plan. Troll judge, troll jury, and execute troll.
Your team has destroyed a turret. An enemy has been slain. Double kill.
They look angry.
Legendary. Has destroyed a turret. Has destroyed a turret. Has destroyed an inhibitor.
Time to start an ice age. They're about to be.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
King of Trolls coming through.
Legendary. Unstoppable. Legendary.
I like my
Double kill.
spice.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Freljord is mine.
Your team has destroyed an inhibitor.